Okay, today we're going to be sketching some quadratic graphs. There's quite a lot of background knowledge needed to do this. We need to know how to solve a quadratic by factorization. We need to know how to complete the square and then plot a quadratic graph. So first thing we need to remember is that a quadratic graph, a positive quadratic graph will have a U shape, a negative quadratic graph will have an N shape. The example we've chosen today, y equals x squared plus 4x minus 5, is a positive quadratic. The x squared term is positive, so we're going to get a U shape, and it's good to know that before we start. First thing I'm going to do, the easiest thing, is to calculate the y-intercept. The y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, and this occurs when the x value is 0. So I'll simply substitute x equals 0 into my quadratic equation. So y is 0 plus 0 minus 5. So y equals negative 5. So when x equals 0, y equals negative 5. And that gives me my y-intercept 0, negative 5. To find the roots, I need to solve the quadratic equation. So I make it equal to 0. The roots, just to remind you, are where the quadratic graph crosses the x-axis, and there are usually 2. I'm going to try and solve this by factorizing into double brackets. This is a skill you'll need to know how to do. And this one is x plus 5 and x minus 1 in the brackets, because 5 and negative 1 multiply to make negative 5 and add together to make the coefficient of x here 4. So x plus 5 equals 0, or x minus 1 equals 0, which will give me x values of negative 5 and 1. So these give me the 2 roots, negative 5, 0 and 1, 0. And now I can plot these on the graph also. 1, 0 and negative 5, 0. So you can start to see that U shape. The final thing we're going to do is calculate the vertex. This is the turning point. And because it's a U shape, it's going to be a minimum point. To do this, we need to write the quadratic expression in the completed the square format. So you might need to refer back to how to do completing the square. So it's going to be y equals x plus 2, so I've halved the 4, and I'm going to be left with an extra 2 squared here, which is 4. So I'm going to subtract that 4, and we end up with y equals my x plus 2 squared minus 9. These two numbers here now give us the position of the vertex of the quadratic curve. This here is plus 2, so the coordinate is negative 2. This is negative 9, so that stays negative 9. You have to understand completing the square and transformation of graphs slightly to understand where that comes from. So this is the final point, my vertex, which is approximately here, negative 2, negative 9. And now I can join up the points with a smooth curve. And it should be symmetrical about this point, and it should go through all these coordinates.